Hi, welcome to our 12-minute conversation on Operationally Speaking. I'm Sergiu Simmel, Principal EOS Implementer at Get Business Momentum.
And I'm Paul Marston, owner and CEO of Abenaki Carriers. And more precisely, I'm the integrator and visionary at my transportation company, which has been running on the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System for several years now.
And I had the pleasure and the honor of being Abenaki's EOS implementer for some time. And today, Paul, we will be focusing on a topic that we summarized with the title, well, we'll get to it someday. So hopefully not in this conversation. We'll get to it right here, right now, within 12 minutes. Right, Paul?
Absolutely. I'm ready to go on this one when you are. This is one of my favorite topics.
Let's start by actually talking a little bit about focus. Why focus is important. So, executives, like anybody else in the business, but let's focus on the executive leadership team, right? Executives get bombarded with stuff all the time, right? And so at every moment, each executive has to make really a choice as to what's most important, what's second most important, and so forth. And really, there are some criteria on which those choices have to be. Otherwise, they become sort of like, I feel like doing this one today, and I feel like doing something else tomorrow. So the question is, what are those bases? And focus, what is it, or a clear definition of what is it that we are focusing on is ultimately what should drive our choices at all time as executives. So let me ask you a question. Pre-EOS, if you can kind of go back into memory lane, let's say about 5 years ago, how were those choices being made at Abenaki by you and the rest of the leaders at the time?
I would say, honestly, it was by fire or by shiny object. So it would be, what was the emergency of the moment? And that might have led to a series of events. Or, what was that captivating idea? And very candidly, I am sure they were dominated by what I thought. I wasn't able to really solicit groupthink.
If we actually set goals that are midterm, so they are about like 90 days out, then we can actually having the entire company, starting with the leadership team, focus on those and make those kinds of choices. So in the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, we call those goals under a name which may sound strange to some people. They're called quarterly rocks. And, the terminology comes from a Stephen Covey story I'm not going to get into right now. We set a number of goals. So essentially there are goals or priorities that, as the definition goes, must get done by the end of the quarter, by the end of this cycle of 90 days. So we always limit the number of quarterly rocks to somewhere between 3 to 7. And so what are your thoughts about that, Paul? Why limit them?
Because they got to be juicy. They got to be real and important and significant. You can't lose track. You must accomplish them. So you want to stay focused. You can always do more. But we want to make sure that we're really helping each other. And everyone's got them. I got a leadership team with 5 of us on it. And if everybody has 3 or 4 goals, that's, 15 to 20 goals. That can move an organization over 90 days. And you want to be hyper-focused and you want to be a winner at this game.
Right. I walk sometimes into, companies and I ask the CEO or the owner, do you have goals of any kind? And they say, oh, yeah, we have 12 goals this year. And my response initially used to be only in my head. These days, I actually even open my mouth and say so. I said, listen, let me tell you something. The likelihood of you accomplishing 12 goals is, how much? 0. Basically based on experience. Now, you may be the exception that confirms the rule, but based on my experience, it's just impossible. So now, related to what you said earlier, Paul, so who declares those rocks? How do they come about? Is it everybody on their own, or do you set those quarterly rocks?
No. So we flush them out. I mean, they become, because we keep track of our issues, and we're getting together on a pretty intentional basis, and we have an annual. It has to work backwards. It has to work back from where you're going for the year, and where you're going for the quarter, and that's how you determine what's important. Because we have a vision on the year, then we can set what it is we want to accomplish in the quarter, and it's a we. And when we go through that process, and we do it at the 2-day offsite, which eventually, the 1-day quarterly, we'll talk about that in another meeting. It is so important that those big goals, what's it going to take to accomplish the big goal for the year? And because if it's a lofty goal, it takes some intermediary steps to get there. And it takes the whole team coming together to do it. You don't just want my ideas and my goal. I need 5 people with each person contributing. That's when you get some synergy and some real synergy amongst the team. So it's a group, and they can call you out. The better your team is, the higher your level of trust. We call each other out and say, well, wait a minute. Is that goal really enough to get us there? Or is that goal really smart? Or isn't that goal, hey, look, I'll tell you flat out, isn't that goal your job? So why don't we pick something else? Because we don't want to pick goals that are just, something that somebody should do. And then a lot of times that's so much on your plate. Realistically, are you going to be able to do that? It's a helpful process. And then they got to be obviously SMART goals. They got to be specific. They're obviously measurable because we do it on the quarter, and they got to be attainable. And so we work as a team to call each other out. And that's when that level of trust builds amongst the team. Are you open and honest to call each other out?
Yeah, so speaking about SMART goals, as you mentioned this, I want to actually add on to what you just said. One thing that I like to both coach and teach my clients, and I'm sure that I did this with your team as well, Paul, is to turn these 3 requirements that we focus on, which is the quarterly rocks must be specific, measurable, and attainable, into questions, because sometimes it's a little bit vague or unclear what those words actually mean. So with respect to specific rocks, I ask people to ask themselves, how do I know when I'm done? And it's interesting, even fairly experienced teams still have initially this kind of issue or difficulty articulating rocks that are really, really specific. And there's all this kind of wiggle room that people give themselves. And I always go back to the question, how do I know when you're done? How do you know that when you're done? And if you can't answer that really sharply, really black and white, then we have a problem. Now, with respect to measurable, this is more of a, how do I know I am making progress? Is there a way to ascertain at any point in time that this week I'm, there are 13 weeks in a quarter. This week I'm 1/13 closer to the goal or something like that than I was last week. And ultimately attainable, and this is a tricky one, as you recall. The attainability part is, is this rock achievable under any predictable circumstances? Yes.
Well, I know our time is limited, so I wanted to jump in and just say that, yes, you've hit all the aspects of being SMART, and are they significant? And, but how do we hold them accountable, as the leader? And that's what that every week at part of an organized weekly meeting, checking in. And with it's a one question, it's a 2-answer possible question, on track or off track.
Exactly.
If you meet with them in the middle of the quarter and you check in and say, hey, that rock, you were going to hire X amount of people, how's that going? And so a few questions: what help do you need? Somebody can finish their rock and say, okay, you've completed, now we need to help out so-and-so. Well, that's not my area. What else can, let's come together as a team to help each other complete. But I know we're busting up against the end of our time, Serge.
Well, very, very closely. Let's see. One quick question. So, how many rocks do your folks have right now?
We have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we have 18 between the 5 of us.
Okay, that's a.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. My software double counts the corporate. We have 13 between the 5 of us.
Okay, still, good, solid numbers. Any final thoughts, Paul?
Well, this is just such an important process as a leader to move an organization forward. And I can't, and because you would be surprised how it's setting priorities. A lot of people are not used to that. They think everything's a priority. And then as a leader, you know that if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And just having the discipline to do this is so important.
So should people just go off and start creating rocks on their own?
It's simple. It's not easy. And if, this is where I'll give you a shameless plug. I mean, it's starting on third base. There's a process to it. And it's something that can be coached. It's something that can be learned. And if they hire an implementer like yourself, Serge, it gets it. All of a sudden, they're high functioning on rock setting like that.
Well, thank you so much for your endorsement, Paul. And of course, for those of you who are watching this, if you want to reach out to me, I am reachable at 617-731-3132, or you can email me at sss@getbusinessmomentum.com.
And thank you, Serge. And I'm looking forward to our next 12-minute conversation on operational speaking.
Well, thank you, Paul, and goodbye.